প্রিয় দর্শক, আপনাদের সবাইকে অনেক প্রীতি এবং শুভেচ্ছা জানিয়ে শুরু করছি আমাদের নিয়মিত অনুষ্ঠান গ্রামীণ ফোন লিড নিউজ। আপনাদের সঙ্গে আছি আমি জা এ মামুন। আজকে আপনারা জানেন 10ই জানুয়ারি বঙ্গবন্ধুর স্বদেশ প্রত্যাবর্তন দিবস এবং আজকের এই বিশেষ দিনে আমরা আমাদের স্টুডিওতে পেয়েছি একজন বিশেষ অতিথিকে। তিনি বিশ্বখ্যাত সাংবাদিক সাইমন ড্রিং। 1971 সালের মুক্তিযুদ্ধের সময় তিনি বাংলাদেশে ছিলেন। বাংলাদেশের মুক্তিযুদ্ধ আন্তর্জাতিক গণমাধ্যমে তিনি তুলে ধরেছিলেন এবং 1972 সালের এই দিনে যখন বঙ্গবন্ধু বাংলাদেশে ফেরত এলেন সেদিনও তিনি এই ঢাকা শহরে উপস্থিত ছিলেন। একই সঙ্গে আপনারা জানেন যে তিনি বাংলাদেশে টেলিভিশন সাংবাদিকতা প্রতিষ্ঠার ক্ষেত্রে অগ্রণী ভূমিকা পালন করেছেন। বিশেষ করে 2000 সালে যখন একুশে টেলিভিশন চালু হলো তিনি ছিলেন সেই একুশে টেলিভিশনের প্রতিষ্ঠাতা ব্যবস্থাপনা পরিচালক এবং তার হাত ধরেই বাংলাদেশে টেলিভিশন সাংবাদিকতা বিকশিত হয়েছে। আজকে আমরা সাইমন ড্রিংয়ের সঙ্গে 1971 এবং পরবর্তীকালে একুশে টেলিভিশন এবং বাংলাদেশের টেলিভিশন সাংবাদিকতা এইসব বিষয়ে কথা বলবো। সাইমন ড্রিং, thank you very much for joining us in this studio of ATN Bangla in Gramin Phone Lead News program.
My pleasure, Mamun, my pleasure. Good to see you again.
Yeah, I'm glad to see you and I believe that many Bangladeshi audience will be very happy to see you again in television screen as you have opened the door for Bangladeshi viewers through the television news how this country is going, how we moving forward. So I was talking our viewers about you a little bit, that you have covered the Liberation War in 1971 and you were present in 10th of December when Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib came back from Pakistan jail. So we will discuss a little bit of that and definitely about the television industry of Bangladesh as you were the part of television news in Bangladesh. Before that, we will see the news headlines here.
Right.
What was the top stories of the day?
Okay.
From different television channels, of course.
নানা কর্মসূচির মধ্য দিয়ে জাতির পিতা বঙ্গবন্ধু শেখ মুজিবুর রহমানের ঐতিহাসিক স্বদেশ প্রত্যাবর্তন দিবস পালন।
দেশে বিদেশে ব্যাপক সমালোচনার পর ভারতের ট্রানজিট সুবিধা থেকে মুক্ত হচ্ছে তিতাস, বাঁধ ভাঙা শুরু।
পিটিএ ছাত্র হত্যার ঘটনায় আজও ক্ষোভে উত্তাল জাহাঙ্গীরনগর বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় ক্যাম্পাস। শিক্ষক শিক্ষার্থীদের বিক্ষোভ সমাবেশ। হত্যায় ছাত্রলীগের কেউ জড়িত নয় দাবি কেন্দ্রীয় নেতাদের।
এখানে সেখানে অপপ্রচার না করে সংসদে গিয়ে কথা বলুন, বিরোধী দলীয় নেতার প্রতি প্রধানমন্ত্রী আহ্বান।
বিরোধী দলের শান্তিপূর্ণ কর্মসূচিতে বাধা দেবে না সরকার, নিজেদের বক্তব্য নিয়ে সংসদে যোগ দেওয়ার আহ্বান প্রধানমন্ত্রী।
বিডিআর বিদ্রোহে বিএনপির উস্কানি খতিয়ে দেখতে বলেছেন প্রধানমন্ত্রী। স্বদেশ প্রত্যাবর্তন দিবসে জাতির জনকের প্রতি শ্রদ্ধা।
বঙ্গবন্ধুর স্বদেশ প্রত্যাবর্তন দিবসে প্রধানমন্ত্রীর শ্রদ্ধা জ্ঞাপন। বিরোধী দলীয় নেত্রীর কথায় বিভ্রান্ত না হতে সকলের প্রতি আহ্বান।
সংলাপে তত্ত্বাবধায়ক ব্যবস্থা পুনর্বহালের দাবি জানাবে বিএনপি। এ দাবির জায়গা বঙ্গভবন নয় বললেন সুরঞ্জিত।
আন্দোলন না করে তত্ত্বাবধায়ক সরকার ইস্যুতে কথা বলতে সংসদে আসুন, খালেদা জিয়ার প্রতি আবারও প্রধানমন্ত্রীর আহ্বান। রাষ্ট্রপতি সংলাপে দলীয় অবস্থান ঠিক করতে রাতে বৈঠকে বসছে বিএনপি। সংলাপকে গুরুত্ব দেওয়ার আহ্বান মহাজোট নেতাদের। ছাত্র নিহত হওয়ার ঘটনায় জাহাঙ্গীরনগর বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ে বিক্ষোভ অব্যাহত। 3 ছাত্রলীগ কর্মীকে আজীবন বহিষ্কার, হত্যা মামলা দায়ের। জামাত শিবির নেতাদের বিরুদ্ধে রাষ্ট্রবিরোধী ষড়যন্ত্রের অভিযোগ। মামলা করতে সরকারের অনুমতি চাইল পুলিশ। এবং পাইপলাইন বসানো হলেও রাজশাহী পশ্চিমাঞ্চলে গ্যাস সরবরাহ অনিশ্চিত। নতুন আবাসিক সংযোগও বন্ধ থাকবে জানালেন জ্বালানি উপদেষ্টা।
Yes, there are many types of stories, days, events, but mostly we have seen that all the major television has covered the homecoming day of Sheikh Mujib Bangabandhu in a big way, and Prime Minister made statement on that issue. I will start the discussion with you from that point that can you remember anything about that day in 1972 as a journalist, young reporter you were in Dhaka?
Yeah, I was 27, I think. Not so young, but getting there. It was a very special day for me because obviously I'd been here in March 71 at the beginning of the struggle and witnessed the extent of the massacres that had taken place. So for me then in December 1972 to be here for the finish and then for the return of Sheikh Mujib in January 10, was very special. And it was particularly exciting almost because when he arrived at the airport I was able to clamber onto the back of the truck and I actually drove into town on the back of the truck that Sheikh Mujib was on, that Bangabandhu was on. And of course the mass crowds and the excitement and the enthusiasm, you were caught up in that. It was a very special
and when did
very
you
special moment. But masses of people, but Sheikh Mujib actually recognized me because I'd met him 2 or 3 times in March in 71 and he remembered me and he thanked me for my reporting. And then as a crowning thing, the next day happened to be my birthday, January 11th, and I don't know who told him, but I was staying at the Intercontinental Hotel and I received a birthday cake from Bangabandhu. So that was very special. And it was nice. So I remember it both professionally as a journalist and also from a very personal point
so
of view.
today is your birthday?
Well, tomorrow.
When this will go on air, that will be your birthday. 71. What you can remember? I know that you were in Intercontinental Hotel and Pakistani army tried to send you out. So how did you?
Yes, I mean it's a long story, but I mean briefly we realized early in the evening on the 25th that things were taking a very serious turn for the worse, and then overnight on the 25th the Pakistan army moved in, the city was shut down, the shooting and the shelling began, there were tanks, there was artillery fire, machine gun fire, and all the journalists, there were about 200 journalists there, were watching from the windows of the hotel, watching from the roof, and it was obviously a very serious situation. And we realized too that the Pakistan army was going to find it very difficult, because sooner or later they would have to lift the curfew. They were going to find it very difficult to let us out, because if we were able to go out after the curfew was lifted, we'd be able to document and see everything that had happened. And sure enough, on the afternoon of the 26th, the head of the press department of the army, who actually was also in the intelligence agency, a Major Salik, Zadiki Salik, came to the hotel and informed all the journalists that for our own safety, because there was civil war now and it was very dangerous to go on the streets, all of us would be safely evacuated back to West Pakistan. And we thought this was very suspicious, obviously. And I remember going up to him and saying, excuse me, Major, do we have to leave? Oh, no, you don't have to leave, but it's for your own good, you know, your own safety. Oh, I said, so if I choose to stay, is that all right? He said, yes, if you choose to stay, it's up to you, but you might find that we'd prepare a rather special party for you, so it might be better if you left. So I said, okay, thank you. So I went up to my room, I packed my bags, I thought, I'm not going to go, but I'll pretend I'm ready to go. So I packed my bags and then I went and hid. And I thought if I wait a couple of hours, if he doesn't count the number of journalists who he's taking out, maybe I can get away with it. And so I went up onto the roof of the hotel, and I sat there and I looked down, the army trucks were there. And after about 2 hours, all the journalists came out, they loaded them into the trucks, and they took them off. And they didn't find me, they didn't count them. So I waited a little bit longer, and And I crept back down into the hotel, realizing they'd all gone and I was the only one left. And all the Bengali staff in the hotel were very helpful and very excited that I'd taken this step. And they said, there's one other person here too who stayed. He was a photographer for the AP called Michel Laurent.
Oh.
So we got together and we decided we'd better hide out overnight somewhere in the hotel. And the Bengali staff helped hide us and protect us. And we decided that the next morning we had to go out and document what had happened. So that's what we did. Over the next 2 days, we traveled all over the city wearing kurta pajama, as it were, and did our best to document all the areas where there had been massacres, where there had been shootings, where people had been killed. Unfortunately, we were spotted at Iqbal, at the university at Iqbal Hall, by an army patrol, Pakistan army patrol. They didn't catch us, but they then knew that there were some Western journalists around. And after that, they came and searched the hotel several times. The Bengali staff in the hotel hid us each time and kept us protected. Then we had to find a way to escape from the country, which is what
So
we
this
did.
is how you are connected to Bangladesh from its birth.
Yeah.
Well, let's come 30 years later, almost 30 years, in 2000, when you started Ekushey Television, and that I earlier mentioned that was the first window to see the world, or world to see the Bangladesh. So what makes you, made you this think that you can start a television in Bangladesh, a news television?
Well, to be fair, I didn't come up with the idea. I didn't start it. Mr. A. S. Mahmood realized that there was a need for an independent television station. He also realized that the government, the Awami League government at the time, Sheikh Hasina, were actually considering granting licenses to an independent broadcast media, which in itself was a very important step, a very courageous step really, because governments like to control the media. And so he, along with other people, actually put in a tender for this license. And his son, Fahad, asked me if I'd come and join them. And Fahad and I developed and created the actual station, and it's how we wanted it to look. And we won the tender, and we won the license to build Ekushey Television. So over the next year then, that's what we did. We put together the station, we recruited the staff. We knew very little about running a television station. So it was also a matter of us learning every aspect of how to run a television station. We had to learn about every job involved so that we were able then to recruit people and begin to put it together. And the key to all this was training and preparation. So we ensured that all the people we recruited, about 300 or so, most of whom had very little or no experience in the broadcast media. We then set about finding the right people and set up a whole series of training programs, and over a period of several months trained the reporters, producers, cameramen, everything.
Yeah, now in Bangladesh, after 10 years of from Ekushey, now almost there are 20 or more television stations in Bangladesh, but none of these 20 is as successful as Ekushey was in the beginning. So what is the reason behind it?
Excuse me. Let me go back to the development of Ekushey Television. We realized that when we put the schedule together, that this electronic media, given it has a huge range compared with newspapers, into an audience that is to a large extent illiterate in the rural areas and don't have access to newspapers, it was a very important aspect of news and information. So news, we felt, was a very central and key element in our programming schedule. Compared with the fact that all people saw only was the BTV news, which was largely government-controlled news about ministers and activities, which is fair enough, but there wasn't anything else really. So we put a huge amount of effort into developing the news, and that became our most important program. It also became something I think that when we had a change of government, made the politicians very nervous, that we had, if you like, the ability to show the people of Bangladesh what is going on in their country in a way they had never seen it before. When, as you say, 10 years later, after the Ekushey Television was closed down, there was a plethora of stations, a lot of them focusing on news. I think it's good that the industry has grown like this. It's good that the door that Ekushey Television opened has not been closed. It's good that licenses are being granted. But it's not good that there's so many licenses being granted. The market is not strong enough economically in terms of commercial advertising to support so many channels. And I think the end result is that by and large the quality of programming and news in this very competitive, meagre market has declined. On the other hand, all the young people who worked at Ekushey Television, like you, Mamun, have gone on to take your expertise, to teach other people, and you become the backbone of many of these stations. That's very good. So the actual strength in terms of the personnel has grown, and it has become a real industry with a lot of good talent and a lot of professional people in it. But I'm concerned there are so many stations that it's not going to be good in the long run for the industry.
If you see in global perspective, where does Bangladeshi television industry stands now?
That's a hard one to answer. I have to say that I felt that, and a lot of people recognize this, Ekushey Television raised production and expertise amongst its people to a level of international standards. And I think this in itself is another reason why it was very sad that the government should choose to find a way to close us down. It was a very good promotion, if you like, or advertisement for Bangladesh and its potential, because it was of high standard, and we broadcast abroad. We had an international service, and it was recognized as being of very high standard. I don't think that in general now the broadcast media here, the channels really rate very highly in terms of international standards.
But in Bangladesh, Ekushey was an international standard program, television station. Now it's getting down day by day. So if I go to the excuse me, if I go to
well, it's not up to me to say that it's getting down, but I'm just saying that generally the standard here across the board in the networks, in the stations, doesn't seem as high as Ekushey Television was in its original format, and I'm not sure that in international terms that the level of quality in Bangladesh is as high as it should be. It could be higher.
What is your suggestion? How to improve this in terms of news, in terms of programs? If we want to make our television international standard, what the station should do?
I think you need better training for your broadcasters, for your journalists, producers. Generally a better level of training, more focused training. I'm not sure that many of the stations put a lot of effort or resources into training and developing the talent of their staff. So I think training is one thing. The other thing is I think there needs to be a way of limiting the number of stations. There's no need to give out licenses to everybody who might have a few crore and want to start a station for their own benefit, be it corporate benefit or personal benefit. The reason of having a television station is that it should be serving a purpose in terms of serving the people, in terms of entertainment, news, information,
education.
It is a very vital tool in this kind of environment. So maybe there needs to be some sort of guidelines that would help monitor and regulate, if you like, the quality of programming and news output. It doesn't mean censorship, doesn't mean control, it doesn't mean that the government should be involved in this. Any sort of regulation should be through an independent or neutral commission. But there needs to be some sort of way of beginning to look and determine the quality of the output.
There is a complaint against the governments, not only this government, previous government, that television licenses are being given in political consideration in Bangladesh. So what is your thought that what should be the criteria to grant a television license, broadcast license?
Well, I'm not qualified to comment on the terms under which licenses are being given out. Presumably the governments who've been doing this have been doing it in their terms in the right and correct way. But I think that any consideration of in regards to a license application should relate to some extent to what this station is supposed to be doing. What is the audience it's aiming for? What type of programming is it intending to put out? What is the quality of the staff they're recruiting? What is the amount of money they're putting into developing it as a television broadcast network? I think these would be normal things that would be expected of any person wanting to start a major television station in any environment. So I think there needs to be a consideration of what is the focus of this station, and some sort of reassurance that it is going to be producing and programming decent programs.
And there is a conflict between journalism and the industry, I mean the owners. Owners have money and journalists are saying that we are professionals. So who should be the owners? I mean who should given the licenses? The money men or the professionals?
Well, it takes a lot of money to set up a television station, so obviously the license is going to be issued to the man who has the money. But again, for example, with Ekushey Television and the others who put in the tenders, we presented a very big document to the government as part of the tender process, outlining in detail what we intended to do, what our budget was, how much we're going to be spending on equipment, and that seemed to us a very normal thing to do. So the government, before they awarded the license, looked at all these tenders, and they said, oh, they're spending 90 crore and they're doing this, and these are the programs they're suggesting, this is the sort of staff they're recruiting, here's their schedule. So they were able to make a judgment call as to whether or not this particular person with his financial backing was the right person to allocate a license to. And I don't see why they shouldn't apply in the allocation of any license.
Closing of Ekushey Television is not the only fact of this type. You know, after that, CSB channel has been shut down. Channel 1 is another satellite television was shut down during this government. So BNP, Awami League, and in between caretaker government, we have seen all the governments in Bangladesh for last 10-15 years try to stop televisions. So how can we get rid of this tendency or legacy or whatever you can say?
Well, presumably there should also, in the same way as there's a procedure for of granting a license, there should be also some sort of procedure for the removal of a license. Normally, if the station has made some sort of gross betrayal of its stated intention, then there would be some grounds maybe for looking again at whether or not their license should be renewed. Okay. Presumably licenses are issued for a certain period of time, and there would be a question as to whether or not the station should have its license renewed because of X, Y, and Z. So I would imagine there should be some sort of regulation relating to the refusal to renew a license for a station. I don't know if you just take it away. It'd have to be a pretty gross...
But you are the victim of Ekushey, that you know how political causes come forward in terms of closing of a television station.
Right.
And what happened to Ekushey, if you can remember, why Ekushey was shut down?
I think there's a whole myriad of reasons. I think one of the reasons was that there is a tendency in politics that if a license is granted by one party, the other party is going to assume that therefore you must be a supporter of that party. So I think that's the starting point. Even though if your news is very balanced and you're performing in a normal professional way, there is a tendency to imagine that somehow you must be a supporter of the opposition. And I think that is a factor. I think there was another factor. I think Ekushey Television did become quite a large station with a huge reach, and I think in a very volatile political environment, politicians are somewhat nervous about the fact that an independent medium is having access to the electorate in such a huge way, and they have no control over the information and knowledge that is being given to that electorate. So I think that also makes politicians a little bit nervous. The third thing is that Ekushey Television also was quite successful commercially. We had huge advertising revenues, which we needed because it was a big investment, and I think that also has a factor.
Yeah. But one window was closed down, but now hundreds of windows are open. So do you think, is there any possibility that any government stop a television and they think now it will be a lesson for all? Is it possible?
I don't quite understand what you mean.
I mean, Ekushey Television was shut down, but now there are 20 and many more television stations. Mm-hmm. So is it possible to think for the politicians or leaders or government that if we stop a television, others will be alert?
No, I think that some of these stations will probably close of their own accord because, you know, maybe they just can't afford to keep going and losing money. I think there'll be a natural attrition with so many stations. I think there should be some hesitation before any more licenses are handed out. And so that the market begins to stabilize itself. Maybe some stations disappear of their own accord, and maybe qualitatively things will begin to improve. I think things will change and they will get better, but I think there should be some serious thought given to whether or not more licenses should be granted.
I am almost finished to finish the program, but before that I want to ask about point that you were a journalist. I mean, whole career from newspaper to television. What is your advice for new generation reporters, producers, or television journalists? How to become a good television journalist?
Well, I think they should always be open to learning, to improve themselves, and to improve the standard of their reporting. The most important thing is that they must realize what a powerful medium television is. It goes straight into people's homes with pictures and images, and it is a very strong medium to ensure that their stories are correct, their stories are balanced, the stories are fair, and in this way they are aware of the impact that story can have, the damage it can do if it's wrong, the injustices it can do if it's wrong, and the way in which they can completely destroy people's lives if it's wrong. So they must be aware of the strength of television news and reporting, and they must be willing to bear responsibility for their reportage. So I think be responsible, be careful, be professional, be always willing to learn more and improve yourself. There are many other things you can say, but I think that's the most important thing, responsibility. And remembering too that the example you set is also going to lead to the next generation that follows you. So be responsible, be professional, and be serious about your work.
And my final question is, what is your reaction? You are coming, this time you have come after 10 years after the closing of Ekushey Television, and now you are saying that your sons and daughters everywhere running the television stations and working good. How you feel? What is
Very proud. Very proud. I've been very impressed. I've been to a number of television stations. I've been very impressed by the enthusiasm. I mean, whatever criticism I might have about the number of stations or the quality of programs, I'm very impressed by the enthusiasm and energy, and I'm very impressed at the young people who are coming on board. And I'm very proud to see that all the people who worked at Ekushey Television have now gone on to take their expertise to other stations and are playing a key role in keeping these stations on air and working towards making them better in terms of their programming output and their news content.
Simon, thank you very much.
My pleasure, Mamun.
And happy birthday again.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
প্রিয় দর্শক, আমাদের আজকের আলোচনা এখানেই শেষ হলো। আমরা কথা বলছিলাম বিখ্যাত সাংবাদিক সাইমন ড্রিং এর সঙ্গে। আপনারা সবাই ভালো থাকুন। আমাদের অনুষ্ঠান দেখার জন্য আপনাদের প্রত্যেককে ধন্যবাদ।